Hello everyone, today we have a 4-player Commander gameplay with Brionne playing Azusa, Adam playing Grand Arbiter, Ruston playing Sliver Legion, and myself playing Thraximundar. Adam won the role and started the game off laying down Thawing Glaciers. Ruston laid down a Stomping Grounds untapped, shocking himself for 2 life and tapping it to play Aether Vial. My turn was next, and I laid Graven Cairns down and passed. Brionne laid a Forest down on her turn and played a Sensei's Divining Top. When Adam's turn came around, he just laid down an island and passed the turn. Ruston's turn came back around and he played his own Sensei's Divining Top, then played and sacked a Flooded Strand to put Godless Shrine into play untapped. On my turn, I laid down an Underground Sea and passed. The turn passed to Brionne, who simply played a Forest. Adam had just used his Thawing Glaciers to find a Plains when he laid down an additional Plains and tapped out for Darksteel Ingot and passed. On Ruston's turn, he laid down a Command Tower, casting Homing Sliver, and passed. My turn came, and I laid down a Swamp. I then cast a Treasure Mage, fetching up a Steel Hellkite. Brionne laid down a 3rd Forest on her turn and cast Azusa. With Azusa's ability, Brionne laid down 2 additional forests and passed the turn. Adam laid down a Riptide Laboratory and cast Tezzeret the Seeker. He used Tezzeret's Tutor ability, paying 1 loyalty and finding a Soul Ring. Ruston took his turn, laying down an island and casting Steely Resolve. He swung at Adam's Tezzeret with Homing Sliver, bringing him down to 1 loyalty. On my turn, I set down an Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth and swung at Tezzeret with my Treasure Mage to finish him off. Post-combat, I resolved an Ananthomancer, targeting Ruston, shooting him for 3. Brionne laid a Forest, a Buried Ruin, and an Eye of Ugin down for her turn. She passed the turn. Adam replayed the Thawing Glaciers and cast a Solar of Temptation, stealing Brionne's Azusa. With the Human Monk on his side, he played an additional land on his turn in the form of Ancient Den, and then proceeded to play Oblivion Stone. On Ruston's turn, he laid down an island and tapped out for Pulmonic Sliver. He then attacked Adam for 2 with Homing Sliver. Hitting low lands on my turn, I cast a Cemetery Reaper. I swung at Adam for 5 with my Ananthomancer and Treasure Mage and passed the turn, but before the turn ended, Brionne used Eye of Ugin to find Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, and put him into her hand. On Brionne's turn, she cast a Mana Vault. She then used it and her Force to cast the Kozilek in her hand and fill her hand back up. Adam laid down a Reliquary Tower for his turn and tapped 5 lands to blow Oblivion Stone, resetting the board. Ruston played the top that he had just put on top of his library in response to the Oblivion Stone last turn. He also put Homing Sliver on top of his library with Pulmonic Sliver last turn, so he Sliver cycled the Homing Sliver, fetching up a Gemhide Sliver, and passed the turn. On my turn, I cast a Sensei's Divining Top of my own and passed. Brionne laid down a Forest on her turn and cast Garruk Wildspeaker. She used his first ability to untap 2 forests and then cast Memory Jar. Adam took his turn and cast his General from the command zone. He then resolved an austere command, naming all artifacts and enchantments. In response, Brionne activated Memory Jar, effectively milling everyone for 7. Ruston took his turn and laid down a Temple Garden tapped. He then tapped out to cast Sliver Overlord and passed the turn. On my turn, I laid down a Swamp and wanted to play a Gilded Lotus on my hand, but was kept from doing so due to Adam's Arbiter on the field. Brionne played a Forest on her turn and tapped 7 mana for Steel Hellkite. She untapped 2 forests with Garruk and passed. Adam laid down a Glacial Fortress for the turn and cast the Soar of Temptation he had bounced with Riptide Laboratory earlier, stealing Brionne's Steel Hellkite. He then went to combat and swung at Garruk for 2 with Arbiter. On Ruston's turn, he tapped out to cast Wild Pear. He then swung for 7 at Adam with the Sliver Overlord, which Adam blocked with Brionne's stolen Steel Hellkite and pumped to trade with the 7/7 Sliver. I played and sacked a Scalding Tarn for my turn and searched up a Volcanic Island. I then unfortunately had to tap 6 lands instead of 5 to cast a Gilded Lotus and pass the turn. Brionne cast a Woodfall Primus on her turn and used it to shoot Adam's Riptide Laboratory. Adam bounced his Soar in response. Brionne untapped 2 lands with Garruk, laid down a Hall of the Bandit Lord, and passed. On Adam's turn, he cast a Phyrexian Metamorph, copying Brionne's Woodfall Primus and shooting the Hall of Bandit Lord she had just laid down the last turn. He then cast Soar from his hand once more to steal Brionne's Woodfall Primus as well. He then swung Arbiter at Ruston for 2 general damage. Ruston played Marsh Flats and sacked it to find an Overgrown Tomb and put it into play tapped. He resolved a Gemhide Sliver, triggering Wild Pear, fetching up a Winged Sliver. He then passed the turn. On my turn, I cast a Rooftop Storm, making all my zombies cost 0/+1 thanks to Arbiter. I then swung at Adam with Thrax, not considering that he would just sacrifice Metamorph to Thraximundar. Because Metamorph was a copy of Woodfall Primus, The persist triggered, and Menmorph returned to the battlefield, able to recopy whatever Adam wanted it to, which he chose Thrax in order to kill my general with the legend rule. Feeling a little dumb, I went ahead and passed the turn. On Brionne's turn, she cast an Abundance and ended her turn untapping 2 lands with Garruk. Adam lay down in a Darker Waste for turn and cast Scrivener, but didn't have any instants to return from his graveyard. He killed Brionne's Garruk with the Stolen Woodfall Primus and passed the turn. Ruston laid down an Arid Mesa for turn, sacking it to find Sacred Foundry and putting it into play. He then cast a Tunnel Vision naming Living Death. With Living Death in hand and a sliver-filled graveyard, but not enough mana to cast Living Death, Ruston passed the turn. On my turn, I cast Thraximundar a second time from my command zone and swung at Ruston. Ruston sacked his Gemite Sliver to Thrax, who got a +1/+1 counter. Ruston didn't block the attack and took 7 general damage. Post-combat, I played a Honden of Seeing Winds and passed. Brionne tapped 8 lands on her turn to cast Avenger of Zendikar, getting 9 plant tokens. She then laid down a forest for turn, giving all her plants all +1/+1 counters and passed the turn. Adam drew and looked at his hand and graveyard. He decided to do nothing and passed the turn. Ruston untapped and cast Living Death. None of us had an answer, and so the madness began. I received a fair share of creatures from the Living Death, Brionne got a Steel Hawkite, and Adam received none. But Ruston resurrected himself a whole army of slivers, including Heart Sliver, which gave his army haste. A bunch of triggers happened that didn't really matter since Ruston was about to win the game. He cast Sliver Overlord from the command zone for good measure, giving his army +22/+22. We then proceeded to scoop. Thanks for watching this 4-player gameplay video. This is my first time trying this out, so if you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks again for watching.